The story of Google begins long before it became one of the most powerful companies in the world. It starts with two young students, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, who met at Stanford University in the 1990s. At first, they did not get along very well. They had different opinions and often argued during discussions. But something interesting happened. Over time, they realized that they both shared the same curiosity about the internet and how it worked. The internet was growing very fast during that time, but it was also messy and difficult to use. Finding useful information online was not easy, and many search engines gave poor results. Larry Page had a simple but powerful idea. He wondered if it was possible to rank websites based on how important they were, just like academic papers are ranked by how many times they are cited by others. This idea became the foundation of what would later change the world. Sergey Brin joined him, and together they started working on a research project that aimed to organize the internet in a smarter way. They wanted to create a system that could understand which pages were truly useful and which were not. They began working from their dorm rooms, using basic computers and limited resources. It was not easy. They had to deal with technical problems, lack of money, and the challenge of building something that had never been done before. But they were determined. They believed that if they could solve this problem, they could make the internet much more useful for everyone. Their project was first called Backrub, a strange name that came from the idea of analyzing backlinks between websites. Even though the name was unusual, the technology behind it was powerful. As they continued their work, their search engine started to perform better than others. It gave more accurate results and helped users find what they were looking for faster. People at the university began to notice. More and more students and professors started using their system because it simply worked better. This was a big moment. It showed that their idea had real value, not just as a school project, but as something that could change how people used the internet. Soon they realized that their project was becoming too big to stay inside the university. They needed more space, more computers, and more support. They decided to give their search engine a new name, something more interesting and meaningful. The name Google was chosen, inspired by the word Google, which represents a very large number. This name reflected their mission to organize a huge amount of information and make it easy to access. At this early stage, everything was uncertain. They did not know if their idea would succeed or fail. But one thing was clear. They were not just building a tool. They were starting something that had the potential to change the way people interact with information forever. And even though it all began in a simple dorm room, the seeds of a global revolution had already been planted. As the idea grew stronger, the small project began to turn into something much bigger. Larry Page and Sergey Brin knew they needed to move beyond the university if they wanted their search engine to reach more people. They started looking for support, but it was not easy to convince others at first. Many people did not fully understand their idea or how powerful it could become. Search engines already existed, and some believed there was no need for another one. But Larry and Sergey believed their system was different. It was faster, smarter, and more accurate. They decided to take a big risk. Instead of selling their idea to a larger company, they chose to build their own company from scratch. This decision would change everything. With very little money, they moved their work into a garage in Menlo Park. The garage belonged to a friend, and it became the first real home of Google. It was a simple space, but it was full of energy, ideas, and ambition. They worked long hours, often day and night, trying to improve their search engine and make it ready for the world. One of the most important moments came when they received an early investment from Andy Bechtolsheim. He saw the potential in their idea almost immediately and wrote them a check that gave them the chance to grow. This money helped them buy better equipment, hire a small team, and continue developing their technology. It was a turning point. With this support, Google was no longer just a student project. It was now a real company with a clear mission. As they continued building the search engine, they focused on keeping it simple and clean. While other search engines were full of ads and clutter, Google's homepage was almost empty. with just a search box and a logo. This made it easy for users to focus on what they wanted to find. People quickly noticed this difference. The speed and accuracy of Google's results made it stand out from the rest. Word began to spread, and more users started to rely on it every day. Behind the scenes, the technology was becoming more advanced. Their system, known as PageRank, worked by analyzing links between websites to decide which ones were more important. This idea made Google's results more useful and reliable. It was not just about finding information, but about finding the right information. This gave Google a strong advantage over its competitors. At the same time, the team was growing. New engineers and thinkers joined the company, bringing fresh ideas and skills. The small garage soon became too crowded, and they had to move into a bigger office. Even as they grew, they tried to keep their original spirit alive. They wanted to build a company that was creative, open, and focused on solving real problems. The journey was still full of challenges. They had to compete with bigger companies, manage their limited resources, and keep improving their product. But they stayed focused on their goal. Step by step, they were building something that would soon become an important part of everyday life for millions of people around the world. As more people began to use Google, it quickly became clear that something big was happening. What started as a small project was now turning into a powerful tool used by millions around the world. The search engine was no longer just popular among students and researchers. Everyday people were now using it to find answers, learn new things, and explore the internet. This rapid growth surprised even Larry Page and Sergey Brin. They had believed in their idea from the beginning, but they did not expect it to spread so fast. At the time, the internet was becoming a big part of daily life. More people were getting access to computers, and websites were growing in number every day. But with this growth came a problem. There was too much information, and it was difficult to find what you needed. This is where Google stood out. Its ability to deliver accurate results in seconds made it different from all the other search engines. People trusted it because it worked. This trust became one of Google's greatest strengths. As the number of users grew, so did the need for better systems. Google had to handle huge amounts of data every second. This forced the company to build powerful servers and create new ways to store and process information. Instead of using expensive machines like other companies, Google used large numbers of cheaper computers working together. This idea helped them grow faster while keeping costs low. It also showed how different their thinking was. They were not just following the rules, they were creating new ones. Money soon became an important part of the story. In the early days, Google was focused only on building the best search engine. But as the company grew, they needed a way to make money and support their expansion. This led to the creation of a new system called advertising. Unlike traditional ads, Google's ads were simple and connected to what people were searching for. This meant that users saw ads that were actually useful to them. Businesses loved this idea because it helped them reach the right audience. This system became known as AdWords, and it quickly turned into a major source of income for the company. With more money coming in, Google was able to grow even faster. They hired more engineers, opened new offices, and improved their technology. The company culture also became something special. Employees were encouraged to be creative and think freely. The workplace was designed to be fun and comfortable, with open spaces and areas for relaxation. This made people enjoy working there and helped attract some of the best talent in the world. Google was not just a company, it was becoming a place where ideas could grow. As time passed, Google started to expand beyond just search. They introduced new products and services that changed how people use the internet. One of the most important was Gmail, which offered fast and reliable email with more storage than other services at the time. Then came Google Maps, which allowed users to explore the world from their screens and find directions easily. These products were simple to use and quickly became part of everyday life. Another major move was the creation of Android. At a time when smartphones were still new, Google saw an opportunity to shape the future of mobile technology. By offering Android as an open system, they allowed many phone makers to use it. This helped Android grow quickly and become one of the most widely used operating systems in the world. It also gave Google a strong presence in the mobile market, which was becoming more important every day. The company's growth also brought global attention. Google expanded into many countries, offering its services in different languages and adapting to local needs. People from different parts of the world could now access information easily, breaking down barriers and connecting communities. This global reach made Google one of the most recognized names on the planet. In 2004, a major moment arrived. Google decided to go public, offering its shares to investors through the initial public offering. This move made the company even more powerful and gave it the resources to expand further. It also turned many of its early employees into millionaires. The world was now watching closely. Google was no longer just a tech company, it was a global force. But with success came pressure. Competitors were watching and trying to catch up. Companies like Yahoo and Microsoft were also fighting for control of the internet space. Google had to keep improving to stay ahead. They continued to invest in research and innovation, always looking for new ways to improve their services. Despite the challenges, Google kept growing stronger. Its simple mission to organize the world's information and make it accessible to everyone remained at the center of everything it did. This clear purpose helped guide the company as it moved forward. What began as a small idea between two students had now become a powerful system that shaped how people searched, learned, and connected every day. The rise of Google was not just about technology, it was about changing how people interacted with information. It made knowledge easier to find and gave people the power to learn anything at any time. As the company continued to expand, it became clear that Google was not just following the future, it was helping create it. As Google continued to grow, it slowly moved from being just a search engine into something much bigger and more powerful. The company was no longer only helping people find information, it was now shaping how people lived, worked, and connected with the world. This shift did not happen overnight. It came step by step, as Google kept creating new products and entering new industries. Each move made the company stronger and increased its influence across the globe. One of the biggest changes came when Google began to organize its many products into a larger system. Services like Gmail, Google Maps, and YouTube were no longer just separate tools. They became part of a connected ecosystem where everything worked together. A person could search for something, watch a video about it, check directions, and send emails, all using Google's services. This made life easier for users, but it also meant that people were spending more and more time inside Google's world. The acquisition of YouTube was one of the most important decisions the company ever made. At the time, online video was still new, and many companies were unsure about its future. But Google saw its potential. By buying YouTube, Google gained control of one of the fastest-growing platforms on the internet. Over time, YouTube became a place where people could learn, share, and entertain themselves. It also created new careers for content creators and changed the media industry forever. Another major step was the continued growth of Android. As smartphones became more popular, Android spread across the world. Many phone companies adopted it, making it the most widely used mobile system. This gave Google a strong position in people's daily lives, because smartphones became something people used all the time. Through Android, Google could offer its services directly to users, from search and maps to apps and voice assistants. Google also started to explore new areas like cloud computing. With Google Drive and other cloud tools, people could store their files online and access them from anywhere. This changed how people worked and shared information. Businesses began to rely on these tools to manage their work, communicate with teams, and store important data. Google was no longer just helping individuals, it was now supporting companies, schools, and governments. As the company expanded, it also began investing in advanced technologies. One of these was artificial intelligence, which allowed machines to learn and improve over time. Google used AI to make its search engine smarter, improve voice recognition, and create new tools like virtual assistants. This made its services faster and more helpful. but it also raised questions about how much control technology should have in people's lives. To manage its growing size, Google made a major change by creating a new parent company called Alphabet Inc. This move allowed Google to separate its core business from its experimental projects. Under Alphabet, the company could explore new ideas like self-driving cars, health technology, and internet access in remote areas. These projects showed that Google was thinking far beyond its original purpose. It was now trying to shape the future in many different ways. However, as Google became more powerful, people started to pay closer attention to its actions. Governments and organizations began to question how much influence one company should have. Google controlled a large part of online search, digital advertising, and mobile systems. This level of control made some people uncomfortable. They worried about competition, fairness, and the impact on smaller companies. There were also concerns about data and privacy. Google collected a lot of information from its users to improve its services and target ads. While this made the user experience better, it also raised serious questions. People began to ask how their data was being used and whether it was truly safe. These concerns started to grow as technology became more advanced and more connected to everyday life. At the same time, Google continued to present itself as a company focused on innovation and progress. It introduced new tools, improved its existing services, and kept pushing the boundaries of what technology could do. From translation tools that could break language barriers to navigation systems that could guide people in real time, Google became deeply connected to daily life. The company's influence could be seen almost everywhere. Students used it to learn, businesses used it to grow, and individuals used it to stay connected. It became so common that Googling something turned into a daily habit for many people. This showed how deeply the company had entered human behavior. Even as it faced challenges and criticism, Google continued to expand its reach. It was no longer just part of the internet. In many ways, it had become the internet for millions of people. Its decisions could shape what information people saw, how they communicated, and how they understood the world around them. The journey from a small search engine to a global powerhouse had changed everything. Google was now in a position of great power, and with that power came great responsibility. The choices it made would not only affect its future, but also the future of technology and society as a whole. As Google became more powerful, a different side of the story began to appear. The same company that made life easier for millions of people was now facing serious questions. Many people started to wonder if Google had too much control over the internet. It was no longer just a helpful tool. It had become a gatekeeper of information, deciding what people saw first when they searched for something. This raised concerns about fairness and influence. If one company controls access to information, it can shape opinions, ideas, and even decisions without people realizing it. One of the biggest concerns was about privacy. Google collected large amounts of data from its users. Every search, every location, every video watched on YouTube, and every email sent through Gmail added to the information Google stored. The company used this data to improve its services and show more relevant ads. While this made things more convenient, it also made people uncomfortable. Many began to ask how much Google really knew about them and what it was doing with that information. Governments around the world started paying attention. They began to investigate whether Google was using its power in unfair ways. In some cases, the company was accused of favoring its own services over those of its competitors. This led to legal battles and large fines, especially in regions like European Union, where rules about competition are strict. These actions showed that even a company as powerful as Google could be challenged. Another issue was the spread of information online. While Google helped people find knowledge quickly, it also became a place where false information could spread. Search results and videos could sometimes lead users to misleading or harmful content. This became a bigger problem as more people relied on the internet for news and learning. Google had to find ways to balance freedom of information with the need to protect users from harm. This was not an easy task, and the company faced criticism from many sides. There were also internal challenges within the company. employees began to speak out about certain decisions made by leadership. Some workers were unhappy with projects related to government contracts or the use of artificial intelligence in ways they felt were not ethical. This showed that even inside Google, there were disagreements about the direction the company was taking. It was no longer just a place of innovation and creativity. It was also a place where difficult choices had to be made. At the same time, Google's role in advertising continued to grow. The company became one of the biggest players in the digital advertising world. Businesses depended on Google to reach customers, and this gave the company even more influence. However, this also raised concerns about fairness. Smaller companies sometimes struggled to compete, especially when Google controlled both the platform and the tools used for advertising. Critics argued that this created an uneven playing field. The power of Android also came under scrutiny. Because Android was used by so many devices, Google had a strong influence over the mobile market. Some companies and regulators questioned whether Google was limiting competition by requiring certain apps to be pre-installed on devices. These concerns added to the growing debate about the company's dominance. Another area of concern was how Google handled content on YouTube. While the platform gave people a voice, it also became a space where harmful or controversial content could spread. Google had to make difficult decisions about what to allow and what to remove. These decisions often led to criticism, no matter what choice was made. Some people felt the company was doing too much, while others believed it was not doing enough. As these issues grew, the image of Google began to change. It was no longer seen only as a friendly and innovative company. It was now viewed as a powerful organization with global influence and complex responsibilities. The phrase, "Don't be evil," which was once associated with Google's values, started to feel less clear to many observers. People began to question whether the company was still following that idea. Despite all this, Google continued to defend its actions. The company argued that its goal was to make information accessible and useful for everyone. It pointed to its many tools and services that helped people every day. From education to business, Google's impact was still positive in many ways, but the concerns did not disappear. Instead, they became part of the ongoing conversation about technology and power. The story at this stage was no longer simple. It was not just about success and innovation. It was about balance, responsibility, and trust. Google stood at the center of a world that depended on it, but also questioned it. Every decision it made carried weight, and every action was closely watched. The deeper the company moved into people's lives, the more important these questions became. The line between helping users and controlling information grew thinner, and as the world became more connected, the role of Google became more complex than ever before. As the world continued to change, Google found itself standing at the center of the future. The company had already transformed how people searched for information, communicated, and used technology in their daily lives. But what came next was even bigger. The focus was no longer just on organizing information. It was now about understanding it, predicting it, and even shaping it. This shift marked a new chapter, where Google was not just responding to the world, but actively helping to build what the future would look like. One of the most important areas of growth was artificial intelligence. Google invested heavily in making machines smarter, faster, and more capable of learning on their own. These systems could understand language, recognize images, and even make decisions based on data. This technology was used in many of Google's services, from search to voice assistants. It made interactions feel more natural, almost like talking to another person. But it also raised deeper questions about how much control should be given to machines and the companies that create them. Through its parent company, Alphabet Inc., Google began exploring ideas that once seemed impossible. Projects like self-driving cars aimed to change how people travel, making roads safer and reducing human error. There were also efforts in health technology, where data and AI could be used to detect diseases earlier and improve treatments. These projects showed that Google was not just thinking about convenience. It was trying to solve some of the biggest problems facing humanity. At the same time, Google continued to expand its influence through everyday tools. Google Maps became more advanced, offering real-time updates and helping people navigate cities with ease. YouTube kept growing as a global platform for learning, entertainment, and communication. Gmail remained one of the most widely used email services in the world. These tools became so common that many people could not imagine life without them. The reach of Android also continued to grow. As smartphones became more powerful, Android devices became central to how people lived their lives. From communication and work to entertainment and education, everything could be done through a small device in a person's hand. This gave Google an even stronger connection to its users, making its services part of daily routines around the world. However, the future was not without challenges. The same concerns about privacy, control, and fairness continued to follow the company. As technology became more advanced, these concerns became even more serious. People wanted to know how their data was being used, how decisions were being made by algorithms, and whether companies like Google could be trusted to act in the best interest of society. Governments continued to create new rules and laws to control the power of big tech companies, and Google had to adapt to these changes. Competition also remained strong. Other companies were investing in similar technologies, trying to compete in areas like artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and digital services. This meant that Google could not slow down. It had to keep innovating, improving, and finding new ways to stay ahead. The race for the future of technology was far from over, and Google was one of its main players. At a deeper level, the story of Google became a story about humanity itself. It showed how powerful ideas can grow from small beginnings and change the world in ways no one could fully predict. It also showed the risks that come with that power. Technology can connect people, share knowledge, and create opportunities, but it can also raise questions about control, truth, and responsibility. Google's journey from a small project in a university to a global force shaped the modern world. It changed how people think, learn, and interact with information. But the story is still being written. Every new product, every decision, and every innovation adds another chapter. The future of Google is not just about technology. It is about the choices it makes and the impact those choices have on billions of people. As time moves forward, one thing remains clear. Google is no longer just a company. It is a part of everyday life for much of the world. Its influence reaches across borders, industries, and cultures. Whether this influence will lead to a better future or create new challenges depends on how it is used. The story does not end here. It continues, shaped by the people who build the technology and the billions who use it every single day.